talk a little bit about, really recruiting representatives from all different races and ethnicities, and why? And first of all, it's sometimes a challenge, but why is it so important that we really have representation of all people in a clinical trial? Dr. O'Donnell, you do a lot of research. Dr. Shore, you do as well. What are the efforts to really try to be inclusive and diverse in these trials so that we're representing all people who have bladder cancer?
Well, this is so important. I mean, it goes beyond just, the patient that you're helping in front of you, but this is where, and patients do feel this. They feel like they're helping the greater cause. I'm amazed at it. My patients tell me that all the time. They say, Doc, even if this trial doesn't help me, maybe I'll help someone in the future. But really, in order for this to help, many, many people in the future, we have to have, adequate representation of across the diversity spectrum, right? Across the gender spectrum, across the age spectrum, to be able to understand, what patients are going to really benefit from, this kind of treatment. And so including those patients in the trials is so key.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Shore, anything else to add?
I would echo those comments. Racial and socioeconomic and ethnic disparity has unfortunately plagued a lot of our clinical trials throughout all of oncology. And ASCO and the AUA and ESMO and EAU, all the leading organizations, it's a very high priority to get much greater diversity of our patients, because sometimes we see it's not everyone benefits. There may be differences in Asian populations or Middle Eastern. Of course, there can be difference even amongst men and women. So getting patients of color more involved is hugely important. And I know it's a really big initiative within Beacon. And so we really want to reach out to many of our populations that have maybe they've been suspicious of studies because of historical grievances that were wrong. But for all the reasons we've talked about, you get cutting edge treatment. There's an economic potential advantage, but more importantly, it's just really cutting edge therapy, and that's how we're going to, solve the unmet needs in bladder cancer.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, this has been incredibly beneficial. I'm going to see if there's any other questions that are out there from the participants. Any other thoughts?
It does take some courage. It does take a lot of bravery for a patient to be willing to do a clinical trial. And I can tell you that I have many, many patients that are here today, alive today, because they were brave enough to take that step. Kevin, if I can say, I think that you're one of those for sure. And, I'll just add my thanks to Mr. Wren, Mr. Williamson for doing this today. It could help so many patients.
So if you ask about a clinical trial because you're very interested and your doctor says, oh, don't worry about it, I'm going to take care of you, you don't need a clinical trial, and you really want to explore clinical trials, you can find clinical trials at bcan.org. And for those who might be looking for clinical trials outside of the United States, you can visit clinicaltrials.gov, and there are clinical trials that are listed all around the world there.